This podcast is brought to you by Four Sigmatic, a Finnish company bringing the everyday magic of superfood mushrooms to our daily lives. If you visited my home, you would notice that my homemade coffee and tea bar in my kitchen is right off to the side of where I cook everything, and above it hangs 8 wooden cups called kukses, one for each member of my family. These have become a part of our family tradition as we will often sip mushroom coffee or superfood elixirs from them at breakfast or after dinner during family time. Wooden cup or not, I highly recommend all of the Four Sigmatic products, and you would also find every single one of their products in my kitchen if you came to visit. And here's how I incorporate them into my day. In the morning, I will sip one of their mushroom coffee blends, their matcha, or their new coffee latte or mushroom mocha with chaga. Throughout the day, when I don't want any more caffeine, I sip their chaga, cordyceps, or lion's mane elixirs on their own, since these are all caffeine-free but have a host of benefits, including a major boost of antioxidants. Nighttime always means turning to their calming turmeric tea or their reishi elixir with a splash of macadamia milk. Mom tip though, I always keep their activated charcoal lemonade on hand for the first sign of a stomach bug. My kids love it, it tastes great, and the charcoal always seems to help shorten the duration of any kind of tummy troubles. As a listener of this podcast, you can save 15% on Four Sigmatic products with the code WellnessMama by going to foursigmatic.com/wellnessmama. Again, that's foursigmatic.com/wellnessmama. This episode is sponsored by Just Thrive Probiotics. I found this company when searching for the most research-backed and effective probiotic available, and I was blown away at the difference I found in their products. They offer 2 cornerstone products that are both clinically studied and highly effective. The first is their probiotic, which has been studied to help with leaky gut and to survive up to 1,000 times as much as other probiotics, or as the beneficial organisms in something like Greek yogurt, for instance. The difference is their spore-based strains work completely differently than other types of probiotics. Their probiotic is vegan, dairy-free, histamine-free, non-GMO, and is made without soy, dairy, sugar, salt, corn, tree nuts, or gluten, so it's safe for practically everyone. I even sprinkle it in my kids' food or bake it into products because it can survive at really high temperatures. Their probiotic contains a patented strain called Bacillus indicus HU36, which produces antioxidants in the digestive system where they can be easily absorbed by the body. Their other product is a K2-7, and this is a nutrient you may have heard of. It's known as Activator X, a super nutrient that Weston A. Price, a dentist known primarily for his theories on the relationship between nutrition, good health, bone development, and oral health. He found that this is prevalent in foods in the healthiest communities in the world. The K2 from Just Thrive is the only pharmaceutical-grade, all-natural supplement with published safety studies. Like the probiotic, it is also gluten, dairy, soy, nut, and GMO-free, and best are both taken with food, so I keep both on my kitchen table. Here's a tip too. My dad has trouble remembering to take supplements, so he actually taped these to his pepper shaker because he uses that at practically every meal, and now they're on his daily supplement list as well. You can check out all their products and learn more by going to thriveprobiotic.com/wellnessmama and using the code wellnessmama15 to save 15%. So again, that's Thrive Probiotic, thriveprobiotic.com/wellnessmama and the code wellnessmama15 to save 15%. Hello and welcome to the Wellness Mama podcast. I'm Katie from wellnessmama.com, and I am here today with someone who I am so impressed by on many levels, especially his time management and everything he accomplishes. I thought I was busy, but I am here with Tony Kasandrinos, who is the co-founder of Kasandrinos olive oil, which you've probably seen me cook with on Instagram. He is a native of New York, but he spent a good portion of his childhood in his father's village in Greece. And at the age of 17, he joined the Marine Corps, and he has been serving on active duty since then, but he gets to retire soon. He may actually be retired by the time this airs and focus full-time on Kasandrinos olive oil, which is my favorite for sure. Tony, welcome and thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, I definitely want to go deep on olive oil, but first I just have to talk about Greece because I am yet to get there. It's top of my list of next places I want to go. And from, you hear so much about Greece, having not been there. I read about the blue zones, the diet there, and how it's so healthy. There's obviously so much in Greece's favor, and you've actually spent a lot of time there. So I'd love to just hear about in general about Greece and some of the things you think we can all learn from, whether it be the culture, the diet, or anything in Greece.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we could talk for hours about this, but I'll try to make it short. But yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I've been fortunate enough through my military career, which has been 20 plus years now, to spend a lot of my vacation time in Greece. I usually save it up for 2 years, and I'll go for a month at a time. Yeah, it's a whole different world from what we're really used to in America, unfortunately. But it's much more laid back and relaxed. And the first thing most people will notice is people don't really work a lot there. Might be a good or bad thing, but it's a lot. You'll notice a lot of stores are closed throughout much of the day. But people are really focused on family and eating eating some more and going to the beach and nutritionally, it's very different. You do have a few different parts of Greece. You have Athens and Saloniki, like the major cities, and then you have the rest of the rest of the country, which is actually very small. It's land size about the size of New Jersey. So life in Athens is very, very different as opposed to life in most parts of the country. It's kind of like going back in time a lot. When we go back there, like the vast majority of our food comes from the backyard. It's very vegetable heavy, a lot of fruit. You do eat a lot of meat too, but it's generally coming from the backyard or from your fields, wherever that might be. Tons of fresh fish and seafood every day, as long as you live around the coast, which is the majority of Greece. So you're just eating a lot less processed food and a lot more just real vegetables, fruit, cheese, dairy, and fresh animals that were probably either caught or killed within a very short period of time. But the biggest difference out of anything, I would say, is definitely just the lifestyle and the fact that people walk a lot more over there than we do here.
Yeah, it seems like that's a lot of Europe, or something I've noticed every time I'm there. Just it's so much easier to walk than it is to drive or take a train a lot of times. And it's just so much more a part of life where, of course, all the statistics, we know how much we are sitting as Americans on average. But I also love that you brought up the animal protein side and the dairy side, because I think there's a misconception when it comes to blue zones. And you often hear like, oh, they're all vegan. And actually, they're not, at least from any of the research I've seen. I haven't visited them. But you mentioned that animal products are a part of the culture in Greece where lifespan is better than it is in the US. But I think, like, you're right, having that close access to your food supply and that local and fresh aspect is so important. And we definitely don't have that nearly as strong in America.
Yeah, and with I've actually talked to my dad and my uncle and a lot of my relatives about this, and things have definitely changed. I think in the last, even in Greece, in the last 50 to 100 years, they definitely do eat a lot of meat there. But I would say up until more recent times, they ate. It was more periodic. Like they wouldn't eat meat every day. I've talked to my father about this a lot. He said, yeah, we would have chicken usually once a week or twice a week. They had a lot of seafood, and a lot of this is going to depend on if you're on the coast or not. Because if you're on the coast, you're going to be having a lot more fish and seafood. Whereas if you're up in the mountains, you're very rarely going to have seafood. So they definitely do eat meat in most of Greece. That being said, it's not always part of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's usually only at dinner, and it isn't every day. There are actually a lot of non-meat entrees that are eaten. I think they definitely overall probably consume less meat throughout the day, all day long, every day. But that being said, I don't even say I think I'm pretty very confident that the quality of the meat and the freshness of the meat is definitely much higher than over here in the States.
For sure. And I mean, there's definitely a perception that olives and olive oil are a very big part of the culture as well. And I mean, that seems obviously to be true from what I've talked to you about, but that also to me makes a lot of sense because we know some of the data on how healthy olive oil is. It's one of the only oils that I have never seen vilified, actually. Like coconut oil was great and then it was bad and then it was great again. Animal fats have had their ups and downs, but pretty much everyone seems to agree that olive oil is great. And is it consumed like really regularly in Greece? Like how much is it a part of a daily staple diet?
Oh yeah, so it's everything, to the point where most of my life up until maybe 10 years ago, before I started our company, is you just take it for granted because it's something that's always there. I mean, it's almost like water. It's where it's just like always. It's always been a big part of our life, and growing up, you never really think about it, but like we do everything with it. From people use it for skincare. We used it to cook literally everything. There's really not a lot of Greek dishes that don't have olive oil in them in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of times, especially, being more aware of, how much you're consuming and whatnot. We'll have a Greek salad and literally put like a half a bottle of olive oil on the salad to where it's just like saturated in oil. But yeah, the average Greek person, statistically, they consume about 26 liters of olive oil a year, which if you break it down, and you've seen our standard 500 milliliter bottle, that's essentially, that breaks down to one bottle a week. So that's quite a bit, compared to what most people here are eating. Me personally, I tend to like use a lot more of it in the summer when you got fresh vegetables. But yeah, it's a lot more we're consuming here in the States, that's for sure.
That's fascinating. And based on some of the data I've seen, all the polyphenols in olive oil actually have a little bit of a sun protective effect, both on the skin and internally, because they're anti-inflammatory and a variety of other mechanisms. So that makes sense that in the summer you would consume more. And again, having never been there, I know Greece is a sunny climate. So that I wonder if that also comes into play with the health benefits there.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to, what it really is for me, because I eat Greek salads like religiously, like come around right now, like May, June-ish through like September, which is, for anyone that doesn't know, it's essentially like tomatoes and cucumbers and some oregano, feta, and olive oil, and peppers and onion. But I definitely eat probably one a day of a Greek salad. And I think it's more also because I'm in Greece in the summertime. um, so we're always definitely consuming a ton of it over there. Yeah, definitely has a lot of great benefits in more ways than one, that's for sure.
So tell me the story of how it got here. How did it go from your family farm in Greece to now this company where I can thankfully order it online and have it delivered to my house?
So it started, I mean, we've always had olive oil in our family. We've always had a bunch of olive orchards in Greece between my grandparents and my parents and aunts and uncles and cousins. So it's, like I told you, it's always been around. We really never retailed it here in the States, but we would bring enough. We'd bottle our own and bring it over here annually, and just enough for all of our family, which is a lot of people. So we'd actually bring over quite a few pallets of oil for family and friends. I had gone back to, I was stationed in Philadelphia at the time, and I'd gone back to Rochester to visit my dad and brought a case back with me. And it was like the next night, the CrossFit gym I was training at the time, we had a really tight knit community. And this is kind of like when the whole paleo world was starting to come on. And we were all into food. So we used to do weekly gatherings where we would just kind of cook we'd all bring food into the gym and eat it. Probably not the most sanitary thing in the world, but it was my buddy's birthday, and my friend Erin, who owned the gym, she had a big bottle of a lesser grade Italian olive oil. I'm not going to name the company, but it was on the table there. So I told Erin, I was like, let me bring some of our stuff in, so everybody tried it and they loved it. So it kind of like snowballed from there. Everybody was asking me, hey, can I get some more? Can I get some more? And I made a few more trips back to Rochester over the following months and at this point, I was like bringing cases with me, and just decided, hey, with the encouragement of one of my friends, Diane Sanfilippo, she was like, you got to turn this into a business. And a few months later, I made the decision, okay, I'm going to order a bunch. I'm going to come out with our own private label and see how it goes. I made a little website and directly shipped, which got very old very quick, but that's pretty much how it started. And then it got quite overwhelming very quick. Within a few months, I was getting more orders than I could handle by myself. And I was also getting ready to potentially deploy to Afghanistan. So I was like, okay, I got to shut this down for a good 6 months. So I called Effie, my sister and now business partner. I was like, hey, you want to do this with me? She was working at JP Morgan at the time. And I was like, at the end of the day, I did not have the time really to run a business. I was very busy with the Marine Corps, and I was basically coming home from work with the Marine Corps in the evening and working all night long, and then totally the entire weekends. And I'm was sitting there trying to learn how to build a website and get all the back end side of business things done, which got very overwhelming. So brought Effie on board, and she took over a lot of the logistics and financial side of things, which I don't really love doing. She's better at that than I am. And I was able to focus on growing the business and doing the marketing side of things. And here we are now, 7 years later.
I love it. And I love family businesses and being able to support that as well. Let's talk about some of the components of olive oil, because like I said, it's pure olive oil is one thing I've never heard vilified ever. It's kind of universally agreed to be really good for you unless you had like a true allergy. But there was all this stuff that came out a few years ago about kind of deception in the olive oil world and how things were being marketed as pure olive oil that weren't, and what those terms actually mean. And I know that you guys go above and beyond when it comes to transparency and testing, but can you walk us through what are some of the things we actually just need to be aware about in general when it comes to olive oil and the potential for deception in the industry?
Okay. So let me start off really quick on that. So the whole thing came about when UC Davis came out with a report saying, the vast majority of olive oil is not extra virgin olive oil. There's a few different reasons for that, in my opinion. And I can only really speak for our company and what we do, and then friends of mine who also do olive oil. I would venture to say the vast majority of olive oil is not fake or adulterated. I think there definitely, it has happened in the past. The biggest problem I see in America is that we're consuming older olive oil, and that's just the whole distribution process and a lot of other factors that go into that, as far as sitting on a store shelf for X amount of days, sitting under the light and it oxidizing. But at the core of it, if we all get a pure first pressed, cold pressed, extra virgin olive oil, it's going to be different depending on multiple things, like where it came from, what kind of olives were used, the weather of that season. I mean, there's a lot of different inputs that go into like how the olive oil will come out. But when it actually makes it here to the States, that time frame and how long that took, and some other things that some big, huge olive oil companies will do, a lot of times they'll mix like last year's olive oil with this year's olive oil. And that doesn't necessarily make it bad, but it's like it's not as high quality. Because that's really one of the biggest misconceptions with olive oil. And some people, they just don't know because they kind of assume it goes hand in hand with wine and it like gets better over time, where olive oil is the opposite. It's actually a fresh fruit juice, essentially. You want to consume it as fast as possible. It will stay good for a few years. It just, starts degrading over time. And that's one of our big things. And kind of why we've really been against selling it in stores is we only provide or offer this year's current harvest of olive oil. And sometimes when you sell it at stores, you kind of lose the control of that.
That makes perfect sense that you want to protect. And that's why you also, like you said, you would want dark bottles, or you guys also sell in metal, right? That also helps keep it.
Yeah, so we actually are glass bottles, and this is a lot that goes into like the pricing of olive oil. Sometimes you'll go and see like a really cheaper olive oil, like at Walmart or whatnot, and there's a lot of factors that go into the cost, and that actually is one of them, is the packaging and even the glass. Like you can have there's different grades of glass and different amount of light they allow in, and our glass, it's actually probably about quadruple the price of some glass bottles because we use really dark pharmaceutical grade glass for our smaller bottles. And even with that, we still recommend people keep them in their kitchen cupboards instead of on their kitchen counter. Even though we love our bottle and the design of it, it's put it away. But then we also do have the BPA free cans that we have our larger portions in, and that obviously allows no light to come through. Because we actually, so we do just to go on this. So we do a chemical analysis on every lot of olive oil, and we do 2 of them in Greece and then 1 here in the States. And we've actually tested our olive oil initially, and then we tested it after 6 months. And we did 2 different bottles. 1 we left on the counter in the basically just normal sunlight, and then 1 we had in the cupboard. And the one that was left on the counter was actually severely degraded compared to the one that was inside the dark.
That's fascinating. So I hope I'm going to say this right, but what about oleic acid? What is that, and where does it come from, and how much of it should be in olive oil?
Okay, great question. It's pretty much a monounsaturated fatty acid. The thing is, just like with all your components of the olive oil, depending on the specific harvest, what kind of olives are used, it's going to vary. It's generally between 50, 55, and even upwards of 80% of the olive oil. The only way to really get an accurate number is with a chemical analysis where it really breaks down all the acid compounds as well as the polyphenols. So it actually is something that does vary year to year or harvest to harvest. We actually do post all of our chemical analysis on our website and tie them with a lot number, and then every bottle and can will come with its specific lot number, just to, because we really like to be as transparent as possible so people can see, okay, this was the acidity level of this olive oil this year, and it will fluctuate by tenths of percentage points year to year. Yeah, it's definitely one of the important compounds of olive oil.
Got it. And what about kind of give us a primer on the different classes of olive oil as well? I think most people are pretty familiar with extra virgin olive oil because you hear that a lot, but what do all the different types actually mean, and what's the difference?
Okay, so honestly, extra virgin olive oil and virgin olive oil is probably the only 2 I would be eating. But it is going to, the actual acidity level is what is going to break down. Like the extra virgin is 0.8 and below acidity level, where an extra virgin is higher than that. Now, the real important thing for people to understand is extra virgin olive oils, to be considered extra virgin olive oil, 0.8 or below, there's actually quite a difference between a 0.7 and a 0.2. So you really want to find the lowest possible content as that you can find. And then above that, you have your virgin olive oil. That is actually much lighter. A lot of times you'll see your light olive oil doesn't really have a lot of taste to it. It's a lot blander, which there's definitely some uses for it. I mean, if you want to make like a mayo and it's not as strong, that's probably what you would want to use after that. And then beyond that, you have like your refined olive oil and your pumice olive oil, which is pretty much your lowest grade of olive oil. That it's usually the oil that has been pressed after the initial press of the olives. So it's a lower grade. It's usually used for skincare products or not something you really want to consume. And then beyond that, you have a few other downgraded levels of the olive oil, but that's pretty much used for lamp oil. But at the end of the day, really, all you really need to be concerned with as a consumer for food, though, is the extra virgin and actual virgin oil. And honestly, I'd stick with the extra virgin.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, and you guys even have shirts when I see you at conferences that say that. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good conversation starter.
I bet. And to circle back to what you said, I've written a note earlier, and just to reiterate, so you said that in Greece, the average person consumes 26 liters per year, which is essentially a bottle a week, which is amazing because, I mean, I think it's been largely debunked by now, but the idea that eating fat makes you fat, because that's a substantial amount of calories from fat, and yet Greece has much lower obesity rates and heart disease rates, like actually spectacular heart disease rates. They're great. And they consume a lot of olive oil, which speaks again to the protective effects there. Can you just like delve a little bit more into like the benefits of olive oil, even at that level of consumption? Because certainly the data I've seen, there doesn't seem to be really an upper limit where it's not beneficial. But what do you see as some of the biggest benefits?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we can always like find studies and science that say, fat's healthy, fat's not healthy. Same thing with, I mean, you can pretty much do anything with that when it comes to carbs or whatnot, but the consumption of the olive oil in Greece is, again, I'm not a scientist. I go by off of what I know and what I've seen and how long my family members on average, I'd say that right around the 100-year mark. All my dad's aunts and uncles and my grandparents, they're all like still alive and kicking, and they live off this stuff and they have been consuming it their entire lives. They consume it in very large quantities. Most of that is basically because that's all they have. Even coconut oil. Good luck trying to find coconut oil in southern Greece or at pretty much anywhere in Greece, or really any other sources of fat. I mean, you'll get butter here and there, but not really nearly to the amount that we use here in the States. And at the end of the day, the olive oil is, outside of animal fat, is basically your only source of fat over there. You're really not eating too many other oils, that's for sure, and not a lot of other things other than oil or olive oil and some dairy here and there.
Yeah, and I think that ratio is probably important because the latest research I've seen, at least, is not that not that saturated fat is inherently bad at all, but it does seem to depend on that ratio of monounsaturated fats that you're also getting, things like green vegetables and all of the components in that you're getting. Like it's not just kind of in a vacuum. Another question I get a lot when it comes to olive oil, and it seems semi-controversial, I'm hoping you have a strong opinion on, is what about cooking with olive oil? Because there was all this kind of news a while back that you shouldn't heat it above a certain point, or it's dangerous when you heat it. But every time I've been in Europe, everybody cooks with olive oil. So what's your take on that?
So again, when you have conflicting science and reports, and I've seen like so much conflicting information on this because, it's things I'm interested in. Obviously, it's in my world. I can say I personally don't really cook with it a ton, but I will tell you in Southern Europe, like Greece, Italy, Spain, and all the islands around the Mediterranean, everybody cooks with it, and they cook like virtually everything in it. We actually surprisingly eat a lot of fries in Greece, but fries are cooked in Greece or with oil in Greece. Any sorts of meats you're cooking, any seafood, I mean, it's all cooked in olive oil. I personally really don't cook with it all that much just because I actually really like cooking my meats in ghee. But I do use it cold. Like that's obviously my staple when it comes to vegetables, and I do put it over certain meats after I've cooked it. But honestly, I get this question like all the time from my customers. I'm like, it's a personal choice. It's kind of like talking about religion or politics. All I can say is the people that live a lot healthier and longer than we do in America definitely use olive oil to cook with.
Yeah, it's true. And I think I've definitely heard people kind of stress about, should we cook with olive oil and not cook with it? But there's still other aspects of diet that could maybe get rid of the sugar. There's a lot of other dietary things we could change in America that would make a bigger impact than if there is any potential danger of cooking with olive oil. This podcast is brought to you by Four Sigmatic, a Finnish company bringing the everyday magic of superfood mushrooms to our daily lives. If you visited my home, you would notice that my homemade coffee and tea bar in my kitchen is right off to the side of where I cook everything. And above it hangs 8 wooden cups called kukses, one for each member of my family. These have become a part of our family tradition, as we will often sip mushroom coffee or superfood elixirs from them at breakfast or after dinner during family time. Wooden cup or not, I highly recommend all of the Four Sigmatic products, and you would also find every single one of their products in my kitchen if you came to visit. And here's how I incorporate them into my day. In the morning, I will sip one of their mushroom coffee blends, their matcha, or their new coffee latte or mushroom mocha with chaga. Throughout the day, when I don't want any more caffeine, I sip their chaga, cordyceps, or lion's mane elixirs on their own, since these are all caffeine-free but have a host of benefits, including a major boost of antioxidants. Nighttime always means turning to their calming turmeric tea or their reishi elixir with a splash of macadamia milk. Mom tip though, I always keep their activated charcoal lemonade on hand for the first sign of a stomach bug. My kids love it, it tastes great, and the charcoal always seems to help shorten the duration of any kind of tummy troubles. As a listener of this podcast, you can save 15% on Four Sigmatic products with the code WellnessMama by going to foursigmatic.com/wellnessmama. Again, that's FOURSIGMATIC.com/wellnessmama. This episode is sponsored by Just Thrive Probiotics. I found this company when searching for the most research-backed and effective probiotic available, and I was blown away at the difference I found in their products. They offer 2 cornerstone products that are both clinically studied and highly effective. The first is their probiotic, which has been studied to help with leaky gut and to survive up to 1,000 times as much as other probiotics, or as the beneficial organisms in something like Greek yogurt, for instance. The difference is their spore-based strains work completely differently than other types of probiotics. Their probiotic is vegan, dairy-free, histamine-free, non-GMO, and is made without soy, dairy, sugar, salt, corn, tree nuts, or gluten, so it's safe for practically everyone. I even sprinkle it in my kids' food or bake it into products because it can survive at really high temperatures. Their probiotic contains a patented strain called Bacillus indicus HU36, which produces antioxidants in the digestive system where they can be easily absorbed by the body. Their other product is a K2-7, and this is a nutrient you may have heard of. It's known as Activator X, a super nutrient that Weston A. Price, a dentist known primarily for his theories on the relationship between nutrition, good health, bone development, and oral health. He found that this is prevalent in foods in the healthiest communities in the world. The K2 from Just Thrive is the only pharmaceutical-grade, all-natural supplement with published safety studies. Like the probiotic, it is also gluten, dairy, soy, nut, and GMO-free, and best are both taken with food, so I keep both on my kitchen table. Here's a tip too. My dad has trouble remembering to take supplements, so he actually taped these to his pepper shaker because he uses that at practically every meal, and now they're on his daily supplement list as well. You can check out all their products and learn more by going to thriveprobiotic.com/wellnessmama and using the code WellnessMama15 to save 15%. So again, that's Thrive Probiotic, THRIVEPROBIOTIC.com/wellnessmama and the code WellnessMama15 to save 15%. And I want to make sure we reserve some time now to talk about, because obviously I love your olive oil. It'll be linked in the show notes, or it's just at Kasandrinos.com. But I also want to hear from you selfishly how you manage your time and your stress, because like I said, I feel like I'm relatively busy and I have multiple full-time jobs, but I am not active duty military and an entrepreneur at the same time. So kind of walk me through, how do you manage work-life balance?
Well, the one most important aspect, I think, and I know is a polar opposite with you, is I don't have children. Because I know that's definitely adds, because my sister, Effie, who's my business partner, she has 3 little ones that are 1, 3, and 5. And that definitely adds to a lot less of your time. So I have that going for me when it comes to my time management. But the Marine Corps does own me for a good majority of the day. I'm generally leaving for work at 6 a.m. and I get home around 4:30 or 5. And that's without, any sort of deployments going on or whatnot. I generally wake up between 4 and 4:15 every day. But the number one thing, and I learned this back when I was a recruiter, is I really account for almost every minute that I'm awake. I have a daily outlook scheduler that I have, and it starts at 4 a.m. and it usually ends at 9 p.m. And the day before, I always go through and I schedule, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing from even in the morning when it's like between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. And then I have my work time scheduled, and then I'll have, my lunch time scheduled. And then even when I get home, okay, I'm either, going to the gym between this time and this time, and I'm going to have, I'm going to eat dinner at 6 p.m. and then I'm going to work on Kasandrinos from 7 to 8:30, and then I'm going to bed. I usually go to bed around between 8 and 9 every night. But the biggest thing is really to maximize every minute. We only get so many minutes and hours in a day, and I think a lot of it is often, especially nowadays with social media and the news on the internet 24/7. I think a lot of time is wasted just kind of doing things that aren't really productive. So biggest thing is just to really break down your day and account for your minutes and what you're doing and when you're doing them.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're right. The kid thing is different, and a lot of people listening are moms, and so just want to, offer to speak to that for a minute, because kids are a different ball game, and they do take quite a bit of time and energy, but also we do have a little bit more flexibility sometimes than being active duty military. And I just have a lot of respect for everything you've accomplished while juggling that too. And I share your focus on maximizing the hours that you have and the minutes that you have. And I do a similar thing in my own life of managing very carefully my time during the day. And for me, the biggest benefit I've found from that also is that it frees you up mentally, because that was something I realized early on in motherhood, was that I was stressed out all the time because I was trying to manage in my head all of the things that had to happen in a given day and all the appointments and who needed what and the meal planning and everything. And so I just had all these open loops constantly. And when you plan those things and everything has a place and a time and a schedule, then you can at least let go of the mental stress of that, because things are going to happen when they're supposed to happen. And it sounds like that's what you do as well. Is just by having that plan, you're able to take away some of the stress. Are there any other stress management tips that you would offer? Because I think you're right, motherhood can be a stressful endeavor as well, but it's, I would guess, being deployed is probably at least as stressful, probably much more so. So how have you managed to manage your stress throughout all of that?
I think a lot of it at first will come out with your outlook on life and people. I always try and live as much of a stress-free life as possible in basically every aspect of life, whether it's finances or minimalism or relationships. I try and definitely keep stress out. But one thing that definitely helps is I go outside every day. And even I won't even listen to music. I generally will go outside, even if it's for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and go for a walk or go in the woods. Or I happen to live near a really cool forest now. But I definitely find that helps big. And I think it's something where most people are severely lacking these days, is actually getting outside and being in nature and kind of unplugging from, all the phone screens and monitors and TVs and just busyness of everyday life. So that's definitely my number one thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that, because it's something anybody can do, and it's not expensive. It doesn't cost anything. It's not like some crazy biohacking device that no one can actually afford. It's like go in nature, which is almost like its own vitamin, I think. And that's such a great tip. And to echo that, I think sometimes we want to do all these complicated things to be healthy. And some of the most important things are sleep and time outdoors and just hydration, things that are largely completely free. And there's some really cool studies, I'm sure you've seen them as well, about spending time outside, especially in the morning, has so many benefits for circadian rhythm and for sleep and for melatonin and for a lot of aspects of health and hormones. And so obviously that makes total sense why it would be not just anecdotal, but a very statistically backed stress relief. And most of us statistically are not doing that. We're spending way too much time inside in chairs. So you're kind of tackling two things at once by walking and being outside, which I love. So just on a practical level, let people know where you guys are available, because I know you have your own website. Are you guys available anywhere else that people might shop?
Yeah, we're on 2 places right now, and that's Kasandrinos.com, and we're on Amazon. So those are 2 places. We spoke a little bit earlier about why. I mean, we really like to have the quality control of how long our oil is actually in our fulfillment center. We actually send our oil to Amazon on a pretty much a bi-weekly basis, just to ensure, it's not hanging around there too long. And that we may go into stores in the future. It's something we've kind of been hesitant on doing. But yep, right now we're at those two places, and it's looking, we just got approved for Walmart.com, so we might be on there here very shortly.
Awesome. Well, and like I said before we hit record, I'm so excited to see what the next couple of years looks like for you guys when you actually have more than a few hours a week to devote to this and to all the things that you guys are doing. You also are working on some related products like balsamic vinegars. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, we actually brought over a few vinegars from Greece, and we actually have quite a few things in store for the future. Just, again, we don't have a lot of time right now, but the one we came out with last year, which we really love and we're going to be promoting a lot more heavily, is our little travel packets that are little single serving sizes of olive oil. But we actually have a line of spices that will be coming out in the next 6 months, as well as some skincare products. So definitely things coming out.
I love it. And I'll make sure links to the existing products are in the show notes, and definitely encourage people to follow you guys on Instagram too, to keep up with new products and the visits to Greece, because those are super fun to watch. And the travel packets, I'm glad you mentioned those, because I keep a ton of those in stock at my house all the time for two reasons. One is that at restaurants, I don't trust necessarily their olive oil, that it's actually olive oil and it doesn't taste as good. So I bring those in my purse when I eat anywhere and use it as salad dressing. But also I use them at the beach or the pool as essentially very low SPF oil on my skin. And they're the perfect size for that. So I love that you guys have those little ones. They're great to travel with. Or another tip I found with those single serve ones, I don't actually know what the mechanism is, but I know that essentially taking a shot of olive oil helps with headaches. So whenever I'm traveling and I get a headache, I will literally just shoot a packet of olive oil and my headache almost always goes away. So I don't know if it's the antioxidants or what it is, but I've never had that fail. So another tip for anybody listening. Well, Tony, I am so appreciative of your time. I know that you are actually on lunch break right now from being active duty military. So I'm honored that you are literally skipping lunch to talk to me. And I am so grateful for obviously your olive oil, which I love, but also for your service and all that you have done for all of us in the last decades. And so just thank you. I'm so grateful for you and for you sharing today.
Thank you for having me. Greatly appreciate it.
And thanks to all of you for listening and sharing your most valuable asset of your time with both of us today. We're so grateful that you did. And I hope that you will join me again on the next episode of the Wellness Mama podcast. If you're enjoying these interviews, would you please take 2 minutes to leave a rating or review on iTunes for me? Doing this helps more people to find the podcast, which means even more moms and families can benefit from the information. I really appreciate your time, and thanks as always for listening.